All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the latest edition of the Big East Coast Bias Season Preview Hangout. I'm Chris Novak. I'm back on the air after missing Monday night's Providence Hangout, which was done well by Rob and Mike Hopkins. So, Rob, thank you for carrying the load while I was absent on Monday night.
Yeah, no, it was good. Mike provided some good insight. He knows a lot about Providence, so really easy to just kind of roll right through.
Yep, indeed. We're in the home stretch. We have 9 days until the college basketball season begins, and we'll be wrapping up the team-based hangouts on Monday when we talk about Villanova. Friday night, we'll be talking about Butler. So that means today we'll be talking about the Georgetown Hoyas. And that should provide some good content today because there's certainly a wide range of topics of discussion when discussing the Hoyas after they've had a very successful bounce-back season in 2014.
Yeah, definitely. They were a little hard to gauge going into last season, and I think they definitely surpassed a lot of expectations. I mean, I think everyone knew that they were probably going to have a bit of a bounce back and be pretty good, but I'm not sure anyone had them as second in the conference going into last year.
Yeah, it was, as you said, it was a little tough to gauge on them because they had such an oddly inconsistent season in 2013, this coming after a very successful season in the final year of the old Big East Conference, with the likes of Otto Porter having departed for the NBA. Very up and down. They went to the NIT. They lost their first Big East Conference tournament game to DePaul. And it was odd because Georgetown, going into the 2013 season, they hadn't really had a season like that in quite some time. They rattled off quite a few 20-plus win seasons, several NCAA tournament appearances in a row, and they were very skittish. They hadn't had a season like that since the 2008-2009 season, in which they lost similarly their first Big East Conference tournament game to St. John's, and then lost to Baylor in, I believe, what was the NIT, which seems likely. That season was very up and down for them. They started off the year 12-3 and finished 7-11 in the Big East Conference. So there were certainly a few similarities there to their 18-15 campaign, where they went 8-10 in the Big East Conference after starting off 8-3 in non-conference.
Yeah, 2013-2014 was actually their second worst season under John Thompson III. So it's been rare.
And you certainly don't expect that out of Georgetown, especially under JT3, who, in my opinion, well, I think that there were a lot of conversations about this, and I know we even speculated at first at the beginning of last season of whether or not John Thompson III should have been on the hot seat because of the Hoyas' performances or lack thereof in the NCAA tournament. Of course, they had lost to Florida Gulf Coast. They took a first-round exit to VCU a few years back. They had also lost to Ohio, I believe it was, in 2012.
Yep.
No, they lost to NC State. They lost to NC State that year by 3. They had beaten Belmont previously, but I think I recall them losing to. Yeah, they lost to Ohio in 2010. I they run into Ohio at least, and that game wasn't particularly close. They lost 97-83.
Yeah,
first round after getting to the Big East Conference tournament final, losing to Deshaun Butler and West Virginia that season.
Yep. Yeah, but, John Thompson III is kind of a good example of how really you can't fully judge a coach or team based on the NCAA tournament.
I completely agree, and I think that there are a lot of people that like to do that. I know
I mean, look, they should have beat Gulf Coast. No one can argue that they should have beat Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
But some of the other losses, I mean, I don't know. It's a single elimination tournament. You know, you play one bad half and you're done.
Exactly, and that VCU loss, it looked bad because at the time VCU, a lot of people said that they didn't belong in the tournament, and that was, of course, the VCU team that went to the Final Four, who defeated USC in the playing game, then Georgetown, Purdue, Florida State, Kansas. So with the benefit of hindsight, that loss doesn't look so bad. The only real bad loss you could say Georgetown had at that time was the Florida Gulf Coast loss.
Well, yeah, and then going into the tournament last year, everyone's like, oh, well, you know, Georgetown's losing just because, oh, they're Georgetown.
Yeah, and I know before the NCAA tournament, I had ranted a little bit about that. I think it was on Twitter, where I was like, oh, yeah, let's just automatically write them off just because, you know, oh, they're Georgetown. Why bother playing the game?
I mean, I considered taking Eastern Washington just because Georgetown had to fly, what was that, Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, somewhere up there?
Portland.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Georgetown, I think, surprise. I mean, you even click on the ESPN game recap. Georgetown avoids another upset, beats Eastern Washington 84-74. So they kind of have this stigma now, and I don't know how fair it is.
I don't think it's fair. I think it's the same thing that Villanova is dealing with, you know, oh, well, they lose early in the tournament. You can't trust them. Well, it's just everything in the NCAA tournament, I think we've discussed this before, it's about matchups.
Yeah, I mean, if you're only going to pick teams or coaches that have been there before, your Final Four every year should be Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Louisville, or Michigan State, somewhere in there.
Why bother playing the games?
Yeah, you know, and that's actually a strategy that I said I was going to do starting, you know, last year, and I didn't actually, and it would have worked out. But the point is, it's all about matchups, you know.
And I mean, I guess I could see where people were saying it because Eastern Washington was a very good three-point shooting team, and Georgetown was bad at defending the three-point shot last year. But the thing was, Eastern Washington was not a very good perimeter defending team either. And in that game against Eastern Washington shot 32% from three. Georgetown, meanwhile, shoots 47, almost 48% from three. So,
yeah, Georgetown actually dominated that game.
Yeah, no, that game was not close. Well, Eastern Washington held a 15-13 lead after the first 10 minutes, and then proceeded to score 27 points in the next 20.
Yeah.
While Georgetown scores 50 in the preceding 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, and yeah, pretty much. All right, we're not going to talk about a 4-13 anymore.
No, we're not going to talk about a 4-13 anymore.
The point is, John Thompson is a very good coach. John Thompson, he's not his father, you know? And I think that's part of it, too.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if he'll ever win a national championship, but to hold him to that sort of standard isn't really fair. I mean, his time at Georgetown, he's 249 and 115. I mean, you'll take that.
Yeah,
he's won 2 games for every one he's lost.
Yeah, and they had the 1 year, which I believe was John Thompson III's. Let's see, it was his third season where they went to the Final Four. And they lost to Ohio State, the eventual national runner-up, which the team that had Greg Oden and company. But it's very difficult to get to the Final Four or the second weekend consistently. That's just it's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it often.
No, we've
seen it often recently.
Yeah,
but you know, if you pull back and look, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you don't see it often.
No, and we're not. I don't feel like we're making too many excuses for John Thompson III, as much as we're just saying the NCAA tournament is a one and done tournament, and if you run into a bad matchup or a bad spurt, it happens.
Well, yeah, because with the talent Georgetown has right now, I would feel pretty confident saying, oh, they should be in the second weekend of the tournament this year.
I agree.
But then they could run into, say they're a 4 or 5 and they run into, they beat the 13 and then run into another 5 again.
Yeah.
And
Utah was a team last year I thought was drastically underseeded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they could have very easily been a 3 with how they were playing in the Pac-12 with Jacob Podol, or I hope I pronounced that right, and DeLon Wright. So,
yes. All right, we're kind of all over the place right now, but
well, I mean, we usually do spend a good deal talking about what happened last season, and I think that you're covering one major storyline that encompasses with Georgetown. When you think about it, it's always, oh well, Georgetown in the NCAA tournament, they don't usually mesh well together. But here's why you probably should not talk about that. It's just all perception.
Something I really do enjoy about John Thompson and Georgetown, their non-conference schedules are always pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Georgetown consistently schedules very, very well. I mean, I can't recall a year in recent memory where they didn't have a few matchups that were like, oh, yeah, these are really, really damn good.
Yeah, and weren't they the team that was set to play Florida outside that one time, and the court got all wet from the rain or something when they were doing the outside games?
I do believe that happened. I don't remember when.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, and unfortunately that game it didn't exactly go their way with how sloppy that court was, but
I guess Georgetown's worst non-conference schedule was, 2010, 2011, and they still played Missouri in their Thanksgiving tournament when Missouri was actually pretty good, and Memphis and Notre Dame. Well, no, Notre Dame was
so
big, but Missouri and Memphis was on the road.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much guaranteed to play at least one or two top 25 teams out of conference every year.
Yeah, G-Town consistently tests their players very well, and they've always been a very respected program nationally. Their brand is obviously very well known for having been one of the premier teams in the Big East Conference when it was the nation's best. So it's not really a surprise that they'll always face the big guns because they can.
And just going at their non-conference last year, they were in
the Battle for Atlantis,
not Puerto Rico, Bahamas.
Yeah,
with Butler, Oklahoma, Wisconsin,
Florida.
Yeah, Florida was there. Florida got defeated by Georgetown back when everyone thought Florida was still good.
Yeah, so that looked like a good win, but
narrow loss to Wisconsin.
And then they had the rare non-conference matchup with a conference team in their matchup in the Battle for Atlantis. They unfortunately took a loss to Butler, 6-point loss, but that didn't really do a ton of damage to them.
No, and that's one of the rare times you can go 1-2 in your Thanksgiving tournament and be totally fine with it.
Yeah, because they faced the Wisconsin team that was the national runner-up, and they faced a Butler team that was 3 points away from possibly making the second weekend, or at least getting to double overtime with a team that went to the Elite Eight in Notre Dame. So,
and then
5-point home loss to Kansas.
Kansas, who was a good team last year.
Yeah, they were.
And then they beat Indiana.
Yeah, and that was a matchup that was actually very exciting from what I remember.
Yeah, it went to overtime.
At the Garden.
And Indiana wasn't great last year.
They weren't great, but they were still kind of good.
They're still Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a game that if Indiana wins, they're in the NCAA tournament.
They were in the NCAA tournament last year.
Were they?
Yeah, 10 seed.
Well,
they lost to Wichita.
Okay, then they're probably seed a little better.
Yeah.
But the point is, Georgetown, and we're going to talk about this when we get to this year's schedule because it's somehow even better than last year's. So last year, big year for Devontae Smith-Rivera.
Huge year for DSR.
Big year for the freshmen.
Yeah, the freshmen that they trotted out last year were all excellent in their own regard. LJ Peak, the biggest standout in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah.
He performed very well as a consistent role player for Georgetown. His 3-point shoot, his efficiency was a little off, but he still found ways to contribute in a lot of different areas. Certainly, he'll probably see his minutes go up this year. And I think that the main takeaway from how the freshmen played last year is how John Thompson III pretty much just threw them to the wolves.
Yeah, and that's actually what I expect him to do this year with Marcus Derrickson and Jesse Govan.
And probably Caleb Johnson as well. I expect him to get some minutes. Marcus Derrickson, of course, was just named as one of the under-the-radar freshmen by CBS Sports. So they're thinking pretty highly of him. I don't find a reason to disagree with that. I think Derrickson's going to be a pretty good player for the Hoyas this year in their front court. They'll likely need it with the departures of Josh Smith and Mikhail Hopkins as well. I fully expect the freshman big men that they have to play a lot down low. Certainly 6'9" Isaac Copeland will probably play a little bit down low as well. 6'8" Paul White too. Not as tall as the Big Show Paul White. You know I had to make that reference.
Of course.
Everyone else does. So.
Oh, that's some big news. Apparently Marcus Page broke his hand and he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks.
Ooh, yikes.
It's not ideal.
Ooh, that's not good for the preseason #1 Tar Heels. That's a very bad start for them. Wow.
No, they'll be fine without him, but December 1st, they have Maryland in the ACC Big Ten showdown. So December 1st is about 4 weeks from I would assume he's back for that, but that could be bad.
That does not bode well for UNC.
But anyways, back to the Big East here.
The main storylines from last year were the play of DSR and the freshmen. Continue this year with Govan, Derrickson, and Caleb Johnson. How do you think that? All right, so question here: who do you think is going to be the better player, Derrickson or Govan this year, or even Caleb Johnson?
Well, I think one of them will be starting opening day. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I think it's going to – I personally project that – and I know we're going to be talking about starting lineups later when we get questions, but I saw one like that. But I think it's going to end up being Govan, but we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think obviously whichever one starts will be the best, but then you have the other one coming off the bench. You have one of the freshmen from last year coming off the bench. So you have a pretty deep team. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
And just getting back to last year, we talked about the good parts. Joshua Smith left a lot to be desired because he put up these nice numbers. He had 11 and 6, but he also couldn't stay on the court.
Yeah, mostly because of
foul trouble, or he had a little bit of conditioning issues too, which he's working towards. There's been a lot coming out all summer about how he, has dropped some weight and is trying.
Yeah,
but I mean, that was part of an issue, and also part of why some of the taller freshmen like Paul White or Isaac Copeland were able to get in there and start playing right away because Georgetown just needed the height out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they needed height and length when Smith was out. As you said, he often got into foul trouble. His fouls committed for 40 minutes was 6.8. That's when you compare that to the likes of Devonta Smith-Rivera, whose FC 40 was 2.4.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But the other thing about Smith was that he was able to draw fouls pretty well. His fouls drawn per 40 minutes was 6.4.
Oh, yeah. He couldn't really hit free throws, but
no, his free throw percentage was a meager 64.6%. You can certainly do better than that. But the fact that he was able to draw so many fouls and get to the line, and I mean, it's certainly something to like.
Oh yeah, of course, and you hope you can get that this year also out of any of your bigger guys.
Yeah, because I'm looking at free throw rate for a lot of the Hoyas from last year. Copeland's was only 25.5%. Paul White's was only 23.3%. So, and LJ Peaks was 37.7%. So they'll need to attack a little bit more, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and also, yeah, they'll have to look to replace the likes of Jabril Trowick, who also got the line a lot, the most out of anyone that wasn't named Josh Smith, 51.8.
Yeah.
That's going to be something that the Hoyas excelled at last year. They were 30th best in the nation in that regard, so we'll see if that holds up this year and if the Hoyas can attack the basket and get to the line often.
But like I said, it is a blessing in disguise for, some of the guys from last year, like Peak or Copeland or Paul White. Well, not Peak so much, but Copeland and Paul White, who got in because of Josh Smith not being able to play, because you're that much more tested now.
Exactly. They got a lot of burns, so now they'll be a lot more seasoned coming into their sophomore seasons.
Yeah. So let's see, what else is there to touch on from last year? They didn't really take any Big East losses that I'm too, surprised about, I guess would be the term.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they beat the teams that they had to beat. They didn't really have, I'm looking at their losses. They didn't have one bad loss on here at all.
I mean, Providence twice, Xavier twice.
They lost to 4 tournament teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's none of the losses were bad at all whatsoever.
And they beat Butler twice and Villanova once.
Yeah, but they beat down Villanova.
Yeah,
they beat them down at home, and that game was not close from the jump.
Well, Villanova just needs to stop playing games on Martin Luther King Day.
Well, luckily for them, they're not doing that this year. I don't think so. I mean, jeez, they have the ridiculous game against Creighton 2 years ago at the Wells Fargo Center, and then they get throttled by Georgetown this year. Now they appear to be avoiding Martin Luther King Day like the plague. So luckily for them, we'll see if the results turn differently this year, but man alive.
So I guess, I don't know, which player, do you think they're going to miss anyone from last year?
If they're going to miss anyone, I think it probably will be Trowick, purely from an efficiency standpoint, because he was their most efficient player. I think Smith Rivera certainly can see advances in his game. He was quite efficient at shooting last year. But I think that even with Trowick's absence, there's just a lot of raw talent on this team, and I think his production can be very easily replicated with the system that's in play and with the players that John Thompson III will have at his disposal.
Yeah. I mean, it's not often, by the way, we talk about a team who lost their second and third leading scorers from last year, and they're fine. They'll be just as good this year.
Because they run so deep. That's what I love about this Hoyas team. I'm pretty high on them for that reason, because they're just...
Well, yeah, and plus how the freshmen played last year, I have no reason to think that Govan and Derrickson aren't going to contribute in a big way.
Exactly. So even if one of them takes a bit of a step back, it's like, oh, well, they have 2 or 3 guys with Derrickson, Govan, and Caleb Johnson who can easily step in and just be like, oh, well, here's some more production here. Let's keep running this deep.
I do feel bad for what's the name? Kid from Louisville who
Okoye Gual.
Yeah, sat out all last year. Tears ACL this year. I assume he'll get a medical hardship so they'll have him in for a couple more years, but that's still rough.
Oh my God, yeah, that's so tough for that kid who, like you said, came from Louisville, sat out all last year, was like he was going to provide some more length for the Hoyas this year, and unfortunately tears his ACL before the season starts, and will have to be on the sidelines now.
Yeah, I do think, speaking of length, though, I think they already probably have, in terms of big guys who can contribute on both ends, they probably have the most in the Big East.
By far.
Because, I mean,
much more than Villanova.
Yeah. I know we did our center rankings, and who do we have for Georgetown center this year?
We added his Govan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So he didn't win the top 5, but, But, I mean, honestly, like we said before, in this conference, what is a center except the guy that takes the tip off?
Basically, yeah. But, I mean, when you can trot out as many 6'8" to 6'10" guys as Georgetown even has, not even discussing the fact that they still have, let's see. So here, I need to just refresh here because the freaking page went out for whatever reason, which is annoying. All right, here we go. Yeah, they're gonna still. Let's see. Okay. Technical difficulties here. Please stand by. Yeah, they'll still have 6'9" Trey Mourning, the son of Alonzo Mourning, former Georgetown Hoya, and 7-foot tall Bradley Hayes, who will likely still get some burn this year too. So,
yeah, and I mean Trey Mourning, he didn't see much action last year, but when he did a couple nice things.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't even listed on Ken Palm's roster page, even as a bench warmer. Reggie Cameron and Bradley Hayes were listed as bench warmers, and Trey Campbell was on a limited role.
Mm-hmm.
But so he probably played very limitedly for the Hoyas last year as a freshman, but as a sophomore this year, he appeared in six games, averaged 2 minutes, so he didn't contribute too much. But with I'm going to be interested to seeing if he's going to see maybe more minutes this year. With the fact that they have a very crowded front court, to say the least.
Yeah, they do. And a relatively thin backcourt, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that about does it for last year, I think.
Yeah, let's talk about this year. I mean, if you want to talk about the front court now, we can. I mean, the backcourt now, we can. That's fine with me.
Yeah, because I mean, it is probably the biggest concern going into the year. Obviously, you have Trey Campbell, who will probably end up playing the point this year. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean a lot of lineups you could probably see DSR playing his point. I know he played point guard a lot for them down the stretch. He's not a true point guard, but
is it a lazy comparison that I see a little bit of Iverson in DSR?
Not really.
I mean, they both went to Georgetown, so I mean, they're kind of multi-dimensional guards, can kind of play both positions. DSR, poor man's, Iverson. I'm not saying, he's going to be Allen Iverson.
I get what you're saying, though. You can do both as a combo guard, but I can see that, yeah. But yeah, the backcourt for Georgetown, a little bit of a concern just because of how thin it is. They only have Peak, Campbell, and Smith Rivera, as well as senior Ryan Williams as their only guards on the team. Caleb Johnson's kind of a swingman on a wing at 6'6".
Yeah,
he's probably going to get some burn too this year if he plays a decent bunch. But yeah, DSR and Campbell will probably likely handle the load. Peak probably will play a little bit of 2 and 3. But if there's one weakness for this team, it's definitely the fact that their guards they're so thin.
Yeah, and it helps when you have probably one of the best players in the conference in DSR. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this isn't Providence where it's DSR and everyone else. No, it's DSR. It's Isaac Copeland's a nice player. LJ Peak's a nice player. So he's got a lot to work with. He doesn't have to do it all.
No.
And I mean, if you look down the line, they already have a point guard coming in 2016. They already have a shooting guard coming in 2017. So yeah, they're looking for the future.
Yep, that being Jagon Mosley in 2016, a verbal commit, and Tyler Foster, a verbal commit in 2017. And they appear to be pretty much done at the guard position unless they continue to target Bruce Brown.
Yeah, well, everyone's targeting Bruce Brown.
Of course.
You know.
For good reasons.
But yeah, I mean, it's a concern.
Oh, and also they are still targeting Kobe Eubanks as well.
Yeah, Kobe Eubanks is an interesting one because he was originally a 2015 guy, but he's got some academic stuff.
And yeah, he did reclassify, and I believe he was cleared just the other day. So
yeah, so
they could. I believe the deal is to come in the spring semester, correct?
Probably, and then redshirt, and then kind of still be able to practice with them, be there all summer.
Yeah,
pretty much that's what you have to do if you're reclassifying at this point.
Yeah. Let's see, because I know Casual Hoya wrote about him last month. Let's see, because he reopened his recruitment. He would be eligible to play in December.
Oh, okay.
So, because he originally was a Baylor commit, and then he was going to go to Alabama.
Yep.
He was not cleared due to insufficient SAT and ACT scores, but he retook it, and his scores were better. So he would be eligible to play in the spring semester if he were to be recruited successfully by John Thompson III and Georgetown. So that is certainly something to watch for. He would certainly be a welcomed addition to the thin Georgetown backcourt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, you're kind of just throwing him to the wolves if he plays in December, but you might just have to.
I mean, Marquette did it with Luke Fisher.
Yeah.
And it turned out pretty well for him because Fisher was a very, very good player for MU last season.
Yeah, I mean, you learn on the fly, I guess. But, yeah, as it is right now, guard play is a bit of an issue.
In case one of those guys goes down and, you want to say it, but sometimes in those situations you wind up running into problems.
Yeah. Especially if, DSR goes down, the team is probably sunk.
Oh, well, I mean,
It would depend when it is, too, and how long. I mean,
Through the loss, I think that their front court might be talented enough for them to get a bit of a boost.
Yeah.
They certainly wouldn't be they certainly might slip a little bit from top 3, top 4 in the conference.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to their schedule this year?
Yes, let's talk about Georgetown's non-conference schedule this year, which is stacked.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, slight.
Open year against Radford.
Common, often opponent for, well, I wouldn't say common, often opponent, but Radford, a school in the area, in the Virginia area. So Georgetown's always got to play the local schools. Last year they started off the season against St. Francis, New York, Texas A&M Christie, and Robert Morris. They played. Actually, they did. I knew they played Radford last year at home. They played them in December. They won 76-49. Similar result might be in play this year. I don't want to write Radford off, but they are. The Highlanders are not projected to do very well this season in the Big South Cup.
Yeah, no, not at all. Pretty much, that's just that's a good tune-up for you. Figure out what you want to do, because your next matchup is a pretty big game.
Bit of a big one. Bit of a big one in the DMV.
Been a while.
Oh yeah.
Georgetown, Maryland. Maryland.
A matchup that's going to get a lot of pub, to say the least. I know SportsCenter is doing a live telecast from College Park with Scott Van Pelt, a Maryland graduate.
I wasn't going to do it, but now you mentioned Van Pelt, and, Tim Kirchin also went to Maryland, so I got to bust it out in honor of those two guys.
What was yours?
You know who Maryland's best player is?
Who's Maryland's best player, Rob?
Mello Trimble from Upper Marlboro.
Oh, God. Yeah, the Terps are projected to do quite well, at least in the preseason polls. KenPom, they don't really account for incoming freshmen or transfers or what have you, but Maryland's very highly thought of in the Big Ten. Me personally, I'm not so sure just because of I don't really trust their head coach. I don't know if that's really unfair, but
no, I don't either. So
there's certainly a lot of talent on the Terps this year, but whether or not they can put it together is left to be determined.
I think if I had to pick a favorite in the Big Ten, and you'll see this in our full season preview show next week, it would be a team that wears green.
I might pick a team that wears maize and blue. That's just me.
But anyway, big game, huge game, one of the probably top 5 non-conference games in all of college basketball, going up against the Champions Classic for whatever reason.
Kind of unfair, but it's still. I mean, I'll still give it enough attention. But
well, yeah.
It's very kind of sort of unfair that it has to be sandwiched between those two games.
I blame ESPN just because that's what we do around here.
It's hard to argue. I mean, that game deserves its own platform, but yeah.
But they are getting SportsCenter, so
they are. So they're getting the attention they so richly deserve.
But, I mean, they're not getting SportsCenter because it's because Georgetown's in it. They're getting SportsCenter because Van Pelt runs SportsCenter now, and he went to Maryland.
Exactly.
I mean, but it's gonna be a good game. Diamond Stone, Mello Trimble, DSR. You can have yourself some stars. You can, read up, find out what a terrapin is. I think it's turtle or something.
Turtle.
I don't know what a Hoya is either. So,
Yeah, terrapin is a turtle. You're the turtle.
Turtles aren't really intimidating, though.
No, I mean the Maryland mascot is kind of it's kind of scary. Not that much for a turtle. It's looks a little fierce.
But I do agree with you on not really trusting their coach too much. If Gary Williams is coaching this team, sure.
Yeah, I might fear them a little bit more if old Gare was still a coach in College Park, but
I'm not saying Georgetown's going to go in there and win, but I definitely think JT3 has a coaching advantage. I think honestly Georgetown, I don't think they should be favored in this game, but they would have more of an advantage going into Maryland against a team like say a team like Kentucky or a team that just kind of loads up with freshmen because, Georgetown, they've all been there before.
Yeah, exactly.
Maryland, it's Mello Trimble. He was there last year, but Diamond Stone might still – that's the second game of the season. He might still be kind of getting a grasp on everything.
Yep.
But that's an exciting game. That's a big game for the Big East. It's a big game for the DMV.
Evan Smatras still at Maryland.
Who?
Evan Smatras.
Yeah. Is he?
Oh my God, I think he is. I don't know actually because he was a senior last year. Let's see the roster. No, he's finally gone.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, he's been in school forever. When he was in Michigan, then Maryland. Oh yeah, they got Rashid Suleiman. That's right.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they did. So
They still have Jake Layman.
They're a good team, but if you can slow down Trimble, I don't think Diamond Stone's going to be ready yet.
I would definitely agree. I'm a little surprised that that KenPom has Maryland having such an advantage in terms of being favored. Their win probability is at 60%.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's definitely tough to win on the road and whatnot, but dang. I mean, they're projected to lose by 4, but 32%?
Yeah.
Damn. 30% win probability, that is, for Georgetown. They're not very favored really all that well, which is shocking.
And then after going to Maryland,
doesn't get much easier.
No. It gets easier in that they're not on the road anymore, technically, in terms of a true road game. But
playing in familiar territory.
Yeah.
But
yeah, after Maryland, they go to the Garden for the 2K Classic and face another Big Ten team who wears red and is named after an animal that's not super intimidating.
But has an awesome mascot. To say
yes. Wisconsin Badgers.
Yes.
Who are not last year's Wisconsin Badgers.
They're not. They still have Nigel Hayes, who's going to be the best player on the floor.
They have Nigel Hayes. They have Bronson Koenig. They have a couple other guys.
Yep.
You know, they lost Decker and Kaminsky.
Who they'll be very tough to replace as well as Trayvon Jackson. So they'll have Koenig. They'll have Zach Showalter.
Yep.
They're still going to be a very good team.
Yeah, they have a coach who may or may not be in his last season.
Yeah, it's a little bit of indecisiveness from Bo Ryan.
I think personally, Georgetown splits between Wisconsin and Maryland.
I would agree.
In whatever order you would like to say, I don't think they lose both.
I don't see them losing both either. The matchup with Georgetown on KenPom actually has Wisconsin winning by 3 with a 63% win probability. I think that's fair. I think it's a lot fairer than the matchup with Georgetown and Maryland.
Yeah, okay.
Neutral floor, but it's definitely a very fair assessment.
Yeah.
And then after the matchup with Wisconsin, they'll face depending on the result, they'll face the winner or loser of Duke VCU.
I mean, I hope they face Duke.
That would be fun.
Come on. Yeah, they're going to roll VCU. VCU's not going to be good this year.
Not so high on the Rams, are we?
I'm not. I mean, it's not just they lost Shaka Smart. They lost, what was the name? Travion Graham. So.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So you're supposed to, in the first month of the season, you have to go to Madison Square Garden, play Georgetown with a new coach, and you're still trying to make up all the scoring and rebounding that Graham got you. I mean, Georgetown will roll them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, but Duke is favored in that matchup by 10 points. That's a 17% win probability for VCU.
I don't know if just that one. Oh, I thought you meant Duke over Georgetown.
No, that's not.
Yeah,
it's not predicted quite yet.
Yeah. I actually wouldn't hate Georgetown's chance against Duke though either, because like I said, you get these teams that are freshman heavy. It's 2 weeks into the season. They're not necessarily fully ready to go yet.
No, they're not. And Duke, I think Duke is going to definitely feel the impact of the fact that they're not going to have Jahlil Okafor, their best center in years, Tyus Jones or Justice Winslow around them, or even Suleiman, who, of course, didn't play all of last year.
Yeah.
And Quinn Cook as well will be gone, too. I know Grayson Allen is going to be pretty good for them, and I know they have some talented freshmen coming in, but I'm
not sure I love the Grayson Allen hype though either. I mean, it's all from the Final Four.
Yeah, he was a nice little contributor for them, but it's like
No, you know what it is, though. I mean, it's a white kid that plays for Duke, so, he's JJ Redick now. You can hate him,
Oh, I knew this was going to come up.
And I like Duke. I don't hate Duke.
Oh, God. Yeah, Grayson Allen's probably going to be a pretty good player, but the hype definitely does seem to be stemming from the fact that he had a good performance against Wisconsin in the championship game. And before that, point totals in the NCAA tournament: 1, 5, 3, 0 against Gonzaga, where he played 3 minutes, 9 points against Michigan State, and then the 16-point performance where he basically couldn't miss against the Badgers.
So Grayson Allen is what? Spike Albright?
But before that, he had one outburst against Wake Forest where he scored 27 and couldn't miss against the Demon Deacons. An 11-point performance against 11-point performance. I'm over myself here against NC State in a win in the ACC tournament. And other than that, he played very limitedly. He had a 10-point performance against Clemson. The theme here is he had a lot of performances where he couldn't miss, and even that's all in a small sample size.
Yeah, I mean, what did he do against St. John's? I watched that whole game. I don't remember him doing much. I mean, I think Suleiman was still around then, but
against St. John's, he played 3 minutes and had 0 points. He was 0 for 1. And he took one shot.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm sure you're looking at it. You could see when Suleiman left. I bet from when his minutes,
his minutes definitely started to increase after January 31st, when he had 1 point against Virginia in a win.
Yep.
But it's like he feels a little bit overhyped. I don't. He'll probably be pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, jeez.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. If Grayson Allen goes, anywhere except Duke or maybe Carolina, Kentucky, yeah,
I think Duke is going to be very good, but like I said, they're replacing and looking to replicate so much production, especially when you consider the fact that Jahlil Okafor was their best center in freaking years.
Yeah, and, I love their recruiting class.
Oh, the recruiting class is excellent.
But I'm not sure I have a reason to believe that this Duke team won't be the one that lost to Lehigh.
Or even the one that lost to Mercer.
Or yeah, Mercer. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we're underrating Duke a little bit, but I think that there might just be better teams in the ACC than.
No, I mean, and Duke. This is something we could talk more on the full preview show with Pierce. I'm sure he'll have some counter arguments here, but no, I don't hate Georgetown against Duke in this game.
No, I don't either.
Not at all. And I think that Georgetown rolls VCU.
Yeah, I definitely think the ideal scenario for Georgetown, even though we may think a little bit less of Duke against Georgetown, is definitely to face Wisconsin, who will obviously automatically face, and then VCU.
Yeah.
Then they have a chance to go 2-1 in the stretch against the likes of Maryland, VCU, and Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. And to possibly even go 3-0 would be incredible for the Hoyas and for even the Big East Conference too, to get big wins over big-time teams.
Yeah, I mean, say they would go 3-0 against Maryland, Wisconsin, and Duke, they'd probably still not be ranked at this point. What does that put you? Probably in the top 15 right away?
Absolutely. I mean, they're ranked 30. I think they're ranked like in the 30s.
They're 33, which is criminally low. But
I don't know who I would replace them with. My God.
Yeah, I mean. Anyway, after the 2K Classic,
they get kind of a little bit of a pad here with the likes of Bryant and Maryland Eastern Shore, who you the other day said that was going to challenge Missouri.
I do think that because they actually weren't bad last year, and they're returning a lot, and I
honestly, it's tough for me to kind of disagree with you vehemently, at least.
Eastern Shore lost to Villanova by like 20 or something last year. So Georgetown should be fine. I'm not gonna say I'm not doing anything. Oh, they're gonna lose to Bryant. They're gonna lose to Eastern Shore. We don't do that around here.
No.
And then December 5th, they're on CBS.
They are against the Qs.
Which hopefully Vern and Raph. I almost said Vern and Gary. That would not be right.
Yeah.
Actually, no, December 5th is probably SEC Championship Day, isn't it? First Saturday in December.
SEC Championship.
That's not going to be Vern then.
That's going to be, I'm gonna bet that's probably gonna be Kevin Harlan. Or Iron Eagle. That might be Iron Eagle Jim Spanarkel game with the hell would be on the sidelines then. Probably not Wolfson. Maybe I don't know who would be on the sidelines.
It's not with Force because she'd be in Atlanta.
Maybe Lewis Johnson.
Yeah. But anyway, that'll be a fun game.
Yeah.
Georgetown and Syracuse. I feel like the only team that like these old Big East teams want to associate with is Georgetown.
Which, I mean, I guess I can't really blame them.
I get it. I mean, kind of rude, but
I mean, Syracuse they play men's with St. John's to keep up the New York rivalry there.
Yeah, that is true. But Syracuse, Georgetown, big that got renewed.
Huge. That got renewed. Cuse is going to have a bit of some talent on their roster. McCullough is gone, but they still have Gabinajay. They still have Cooney somehow. I don't know how that guy is still in school. Caleb Joseph, DeJuan Coleman as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Is Chukwu eligible to play this year, or is he?
No, I would assume since he transferred, he has to sit out a year, right? He's not a grad transfer.
No, yeah, because he's only a sophomore, so he's having to sit out.
Yeah.
Gabinajay is going to be probably Cuse's best player, as well as Cooney. So the Orange are still going to be a bit of a threat this season. Still don't understand what the hell they did last year. I know that they had to take a postseason ban, but that was so.
I mean, you might as well take it when you're already out of contention.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucked.
Well, I mean, come on. Like, look who their coach is.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're a little bit different. Christmas is gone.
Far be it from me to prop up Syracuse on a Georgetown hangout. That's probably not going to hit well with most people.
But anyway, it'll be a fun game.
That's going to be games like that. Games like when Georgetown plays UConn in Hartford this year. Those are the types of matchups that Big East fans like myself love. And it may not be what it used to be or whatever, but it's good for the fans and it's good for everyone involved, and other teams who shall not be named could learn a thing or two by reviving these rivalries that were destroyed by conference realignment or just by pure arrogance. Looking at you, Kentucky and Indiana, for whatever reason you decided to stop playing each other.
Well, yeah, and even another Big East example, Butler and Notre Dame. I know they play every other year or whatever. No, actually, they can't play in the Crossroads Classic because Notre Dame was still in the Big East when they agreed to it. So Purdue and Indiana can't play, and Butler, and so that'd be a nice game to have every year. Especially you saw what they did in the tournament. That was the top 5 game of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that game was fun. I mean, I was asleep most of it,
but Xavier, Ohio State.
Well, Ohio State would never dare play Xavier, especially after Ohio State lost to fucking Dayton a few years ago in the NCAA tournament.
Of course.
It's the exact reason why Wichita State never played Kansas, because Kansas never wanted to play them and have the horror of losing to them. Oh, wait, that's exactly what they did. So,
but yeah, schedule local teams, schedule old friends.
Yeah, But so the big schools, they never have any reason to do these types of things because God forbid, because they have nothing to gain by it. Because if they win, everyone's always like, "Oh, you beat your little." Oh no! Or if they lose, it's like, "Oh, ha, you lost to them."
But who cares? It's not college football. You lose a game, whatever. I mean, sure, it's a rivalry, but play them, 5-year series.
If only it were that easy. That's just how it works. No one ever the big D1 powerhouses never want to play the little brothers because they look at them as inferior, and if they lose, they'll think that we're inferior. We don't want that damaging our brand or whatever because they don't have a spine.
I mean, that's something nice about Georgetown, but also Villanova. Always playing all the Philly schools.
Yeah, because they have the Big Five, and they don't really. It doesn't
Providence does it. Yeah. I guess Butler technically does it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing Butler can really do.
No, I mean, Purdue and Indiana can't play each other, so.
Exactly, Purdue and Indiana already play each other in the Big Ten.
If Butler and Notre Dame play each other, Purdue and Indiana would have to play each other. You can't. But Butler and Notre Dame, since they can't play each other, could also agree on a game. Yeah,
I mean, they could agree on a home and home, but it's look who we're talking about here.
Well, yeah,
If you want to talk about arrogant athletic program,
yeah, yes,
you'd be hard pressed to find a more arrogant athletics program than Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, come on.
Well, but to Notre Dame's credit, in football, they're independent and they schedule. Why the hell are we talking about this right now?
Anyway,
what are we doing?
What does Ken Pom have for Georgetown Syracuse? I'm curious because I would say Georgetown should be favored by a couple points.
Georgetown's favored by 4 points, 67% win probability.
Yep.
They're pretty high on Q's. They have a top 35 team.
And that'd be a good win for Georgetown, especially if they split against Wisconsin and Maryland, like I think they're going to do.
Definitely agreed. And the rest of Georgetown's non-conference schedule after that is Brown, UNC Wellington, Monmouth, UNC Asheville, and Charlotte. And UConn, of course, later on down the line in mid-January because for whatever reason they decided to schedule that game during Big East season. So it's going to feel like a Big East conference game for whatever.
Yeah, the only one we actually need to talk about, I think,
is UConn.
It's probably UConn. I mean, I made a great "What can Brown do for you" joke in the non-conference post.
UNC Asheville took Syracuse to the limit a few years ago in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but they lost Andrew Rousey, so they're nothing.
They did. That's correct.
Andrew Rousey, who went to Marquette.
Yes, got to make that connection.
Monmouth almost beat Maryland last year, then lost to Rutgers at home.
Oof.
So, no reason to worry there. UNC Asheville, I don't think has a kid who was no, they definitely don't have him anymore. The kid in the late 2000s was like 7'6".
Yeah,
what was his name?
I don't remember. UNC. Kenny George.
Yeah. Didn't he? I think he lost his foot to frostbite or something too.
Yeah, he had part of his right foot amputated. This was in 2008. It was he had MRSA.
Ew.
Ugh.
Ew.
God.
So yeah, Georgetown will beat all of those teams, and I do kind of feel bad about the Charlotte matchup though, because Charlotte actually had a really good, fun offense last year, about 74 points per game. And they had 3 guys get at least 10 points per game, and 2 of the guys transferred.
Yeah.
Also Charlotte couldn't play defense last year, but, it's still ending your non-conference slate again. Well,
ending. You know who Charlotte's new head coach is?
Who?
Mark Price.
Oh, there we go.
Mark Price of the old Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I'll tell you this about Charlotte. They're going to do it with flair, whatever they do.
Oh, my God.
It's bad.
Are they genetically superior to everyone else, too, or what?
Yeah, but only they're allowed to say it.
Only there. And if you watch wrestling, you will get that reference. If you do not, feel free to side-eye the hell out of us.
Anyway, on to UConn. Wish this game was in stores.
Yeah, but the Excel Center in Hartford isn't the worst place in the world.
Long live the whale. Well, they play in the Excel Center, but still. Talking about Hartford.
Hemley.
You know.
Hemley. Had to do it.
I feel you. We both have Mizzou shirts on today, by the way. I just noticed that.
I just noticed that too. That's weird. Oh, wow.
It is. Anyway, Georgetown, UConn, be a fun game. Always is.
Very fun game. UConn is going to be very talented this season.
UConn's probably the best team in the American.
Unless some team is Cincinnati.
Yeah, Phil was on the other day. He said Cincinnati. I'm going to go with UConn.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on UConn as well. Sterling Gibbs transferred there now. They'll have Daniel Hamilton, still Rodney Purvis, as well as Amita Brema. Just a lot of really talented players on this UConn team.
Jalen Adams, nice recruit.
Yep.
I thought Kevin Ollie couldn't recruit.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. You might want to take that up with the UConn blog and No Escalators too. An follow on Twitter.
Yes.
Routinely. I've never had one problem with UConn in my life, so I will, even if it might side-eye some people, I will never not enjoy what UConn brought to the table. So Georgetown, UConn, much like Georgetown, Syracuse, is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I would assume Ken Pom has UConn by a couple in that game.
Yeah, currently UConn in that game, they're favored by 4 points, 64%. So it's not a runaway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and there's another one that's there's a series coming back, right?
Yeah, I believe it is a home and home for a couple years. I want to say.
Let's go into the future Big East schedules page real quick here by our friends at White and Blue Review. They have Georgetown. I know Syracuse is a multi-year thing.
Yeah, it's the Excel Center in 2016 and then the Verizon Center in 2017. I can only hope that it's renewed a little bit.
Oh, Georgetown also in Maryland next year, and they're in Maui with UConn. So
Yikes.
They play UConn, and they're in Maui with them, and they go to Fog Allen and the Carrier Dome.
Oh my God.
So their non-conference next year already is even better than this year.
Well, we did say that Georgetown routinely tests their players. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen again next year. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So a non-conference projection, taking the 5 games that are toss-ups.
Yeah. So let's assume that Georgetown doesn't have any blunders and they beat Radford, Maryland Bryant, Maryland Eastern Shore, UNC Wilmington, Brown, Monmouth, UNC Asheville, and Charlotte. So that's 8 wins. 9 wins?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8.
Okay, so it's 8 wins. And you have Maryland, Wisconsin, U or Duke, Syracuse, and UConn. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's assume for all intents and purposes that Duke beats VCU, so they'll have to face VCU in this scenario. So let's say that they lose to Wisconsin.
All right.
They have to face VCU, so that's a win.
But if they lose to Wisconsin, I said they were going to beat Maryland. So
right. Okay, so let's keep track of this here. Okay.
So that would put them at 10-1.
10-1 right now.
Yeah, with Syracuse and
Maryland wins.
Yeah.
They would VCU. 11.
VCU's a win.
Yeah, so it's 11, right?
No, Maryland and VCU are the win, so that brings you to 10-1 with Wisconsin being a loss.
Right.
And then you have Syracuse and UConn still on the table.
Right. So they could go 11-2.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'll give them a win over Syracuse and a loss to UConn. So
yeah, that's fair.
Make your non-conference losses Wisconsin and UConn. Make your non-conference wins of note Maryland, VCU, Syracuse.
That's pretty good.
Sure.
That's probably 3 tournament teams right there. That's pretty darn good.
and then they actually open the Big East season in Rosemont. So,
Will likely be so. Since the UConn game isn't until January 23rd, that means they'd be 11-2. I want to say.
Yeah.
To start the season.
Yep.
Okay, that's right. Right. Let's see. Radford, Maryland, Wisconsin, Bryant, Maryland Eastern Shore, Syracuse, Brown, Wilmington, Monmouth, Asheville, Charlotte. Yeah, so they'd be 11-2 to start, 11-1 to start the season.
Yeah.
And they'd be 12-1 after the DePaul matchup. Wow, okay. So there you go.
Oh my God. I just remembered we have a bunch of questions and we're already like over an hour.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hey, these last few are going to be long because they're good teams.
Yeah, and there's a decent chunk to talk about here. So,
I guess we should go into the questions probably.
yes, because as we've learned in trying to do conference projections, it's incredibly difficult. And I think that a fair assessment is to agree with Ken Palm and say that 11-7 or 12-6 is likely for Georgetown this year. So that means they'd be around 24 to 25 best case scenario wins, which is worthy in itself.
That'll do.
Yes, and then they would get probably more wins in the conference tournament as well. So they get 1 or 2. So they probably enter the NCAA tournament with 24 to 26 wins. Very successful season.
All right, let's see. Let's go into these.
Okay.
Go into these questions here. We're gonna go through our likes. They're not stars anymore. They're hearts.
I don't have a problem with it as much as some people, just because some
people were really mad yesterday, and I'm like, oh, not really a huge difference.
People just don't like change.
People were mad online.
Yep.
Who we got here? Patrick Waring, big Georgetown guy. Starters and rotation. Well, all right. It's a fine place to start.
Mm-hmm. You want to go first, or should I?
I will go first.
Okay.
I would imagine just with the personnel they have, Trey Campbell's playing the point this year. You got DSR at the 2. Your 3 should probably be LJ Peak. Your 4 is probably Copeland. And Jesse Govan at center.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's probably where I would go right now, at least.
Yeah, I think it really just depends on how John Thompson III wants to run things, but you could also go with a lineup of DSR, Peak, Copeland, Paul White, and Jesse Govan.
Some games are going to go big, some games are going to go a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I mean when you have such a deep rotation, deep lineup like Georgetown will have, especially in the front court, they're certainly going to shy away from using all the weapons they have at their disposal. I mean, I think this is the case for quite a few teams, except for, off the top of my head, probably Butler and probably Creighton as well, and probably DePaul too. No starting lineup should be like the same, really consistent this season. A lot of teams, well, maybe Villanova too, but we don't know what the hell they're doing. So
yeah,
and no starting lineup is probably going to be very consistent this year.
Yeah.
It makes it incredibly hard to project, and I think as far as rotations go, you'll probably see, Campbell, White, and a lot of the freshmen who were freshmen last year out together probably play with Derrickson and Govan too.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson will probably get some burn on the wing at the 2 or 3. Reggie Cameron should probably be less than a bench warmer this year, who only got less than 10% of the team's minutes a season ago. Bradley Hayes may get some burn as well as a 7-footer if Georgetown decides to go that route.
I I think if you really wanted to, you could throw out a lineup with DSR at the 1, Peak at the 2, Cameron at the 3, and then Copeland at the 4, Govan at the 5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They can do a lot of cool stuff.
They can. That's what helps when you have quite a bounty of scholarship players at your disposal.
Yeah. All right, Patrick Waring still gives a lot of questions. I advise that. Don't just ask one. Don't think you're asking too many.
No, we'll answer anything.
We don't generally get to go an hour without questions. Today was kind of a special thing.
Yep.
How big is the Maryland game to the players? Well, that's always an interesting one because, how much do these players actually care about Georgetown before coming to Georgetown?
Well, I think for a guy like Trey Morning, even though he may not be curious, it will matter a lot to him because obviously he grew up with, Alonzo as his father.
Yeah.
Monte Smith Rivera grew up in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Not really a local kid. LJ Peak grew up in Gaffney, South Carolina.
Paul White's from Chicago.
Copeland's from Raleigh, North Carolina. Trey might matter a little bit. He's a DC kid.
At the same time, you can tell it's kind of a big game. You're going to play top 5 team in their building. They're local to you. So, I think that the players definitely could make it be bigger than any other game. I mean, John Thompson will say, just another game.
But I mean, I think the kids at Georgetown, they realize that it's a very big opportunity for them to, get on the national spotlight. I think there's something to be said about that by beating a very highly respected Maryland team that's getting a lot of pub, and that's kind of hard.
Another thing, SportsCenter's here. Which game's going to be leading off SportsCenter then?
That one.
Yeah. So you're going to be leading off SportsCenter over, Duke, Kentucky.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah. So, in terms of that, yeah, it's a pretty big game for the players.
Yep.
How much will Hayes be used? Well, I really do think that the plan right now is going to be to start Jesse Govan. I think if he struggles, you can use Hayes. Obviously, Hayes is a senior. Big kid. But I think just gut how John Thompson has used freshmen in the past. I think Govan's going to be the guy at first.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm trying to see if because they don't have any exhibition games. It doesn't look like. So
Hayes last year didn't do too much. Didn't get in that much. Averaged 4 minutes throughout 17 games. So
Yeah, it's sort of tough, but I think a 7-footer will definitely find room to be used.
He'll have a spot.
Yeah.
If you are at the end of the game and you need, your big guys out there, that's a perfect spot for him. He'll play. He's not going to start, I don't think. But he'll get some minutes. What else do we got here? Coaching-wise, what has Patrick Ewing Jr. brought? Well, I think off the bat, you want a guy like Patrick Ewing Jr. around because of the guys he's learned from in the past. And I was actually talking about this the other day with Luke Walton, or about Luke Walton, not with Luke Walton. He's learned from John Thompson already. He knows the system. Obviously growing up with Patrick Ewing, he knows a little bit about being a big man. Went to Houston and played for Kevin McHale at that time. Who was coaching Houston back then?
That's a good question.
Definitely wasn't Kevin McHale.
Who, Patrick Ewing, senior or junior?
Junior, when he was on the Rockets in 2008.
Oh yeah, I'm not actually sure.
That would be Rick Adelman. So, pretty decent coach to learn from.
Yeah.
He had some success all around. And also, Yao was on that team, so you figure, Patrick Ewing was just, a young kid back then. But, I mean, you watch Yao play, you see some things he picked up. And then after his time in Houston...
He went to New York.
Yep.
Which
probably with Isaiah. I don't think he ever actually played in New York, though.
He helped.
He played in the preseason a little bit.
Yeah, played in the preseason. He was waived by the Knicks on October 27th. He played for the Reno Bighorns for quite some time.
Anyway, the point here is that he's learned from guys.
He's probably a guy who's going to be a big asset for them because, like you said, he played within Georgetown's system. He played for John Thompson III. He knows pretty much everything there is about the players, and players like that, he can study what goes right, what goes wrong, and I mean, I think he'll be a pretty good assistant for them.
He's also, he's the director of basketball operations, so he's not really doing a whole ton. But that's a good position to get your feet wet, though.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
So, I think it'll kind of be like a Mitch Richmond and St. John's thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else we got here? I'd also ask about Trey Campbell's development and how DSR returning helped him. Well, I mean, obviously, DSR is a good player. So, if he wasn't around, Trey Campbell really wouldn't have another, dynamic guard to learn from. I mean, it would just be Trey Campbell and a bunch of big men. So I think DSR being around definitely has helped Campbell positively.
Yeah, and I think that having gotten burned in every single game that the Hoyas played last year, all 33 of them, he's definitely going to feel pretty comfortable when he hits the floor this coming season. He's not going to be like, oh, well, he needs a little bit more assistance. But no, he was thrown to the wolves. He did well for what he had in front of him. But, playing behind DSR and Trowick, who were in the starting lineup last year, a decent chunk, allowed him to kind of get his feet wet. Now this season, if he does in fact play at the point guard position, I think he'll likely succeed with Smith Rivera next to him if they both kind of trade off being ball handlers.
Yeah, of course. All right, we got Doug Adams here. Can Bradley Hayes be a big game bench option to spell Govin? Yes.
Yes, definitely.
We have touched on that.
Yes.
Can Copeland and White get enough rebounds to play the 4? Well, they're going to have to, aren't they?
Yeah. Copeland was a solid defensive rebounder last year. So was Paul White, but I think it's slightly tough to judge just because of minutes and usage rate. But
I mean, you would hope as the minutes go up, the rebounds would follow. In a perfect world, that's how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Copeland averaged about 3.8 in 20 minutes last year. So if you were to do that over 40 minutes, that would be a shade under 8 per game, which isn't a number he's going to get. I mean, he's not going to play 40 minutes a game.
No,
but
get like 5 to 6, which should be good enough for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, plus, and this isn't even something I thought about until Mike Hopkins brought it up the other day, with the shorter shot clock, there's more possessions, there's more opportunity for rebounds.
Yeah, exactly.
So just by that alone, it'll go up.
Yeah, and considering that Georgetown's tempo last year was pretty average at 64.4 possessions per game. It's not like, they're going to be running clock out or whatever and getting limited possessions. It's going to be right around the average probably. I don't know if that's going to see an increase or decrease really.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, you probably know because you're looking at it, but do you know who Georgetown's second leading defensive rebounder was last year?
Looks like it was. Looks like it was Josh. It was Josh Smith. In terms of defensive rebounding percentage, but also Isaac Copeland was there too.
Yeah, but in terms of just straight up totals, it was actually DSR.
Oh, there you go.
Who actually got more than Josh Smith. Which, I mean, again, it goes back to Josh Smith not playing an appropriate amount of minutes, and it's the whole thing. But to get back to the question, yeah, I think Copeland's rebounding goes up. I think Paul White's rebounding goes up, if only because he's 6'9". You're not going to get many 6'9" guys going up against you.
Exactly.
Especially in conference play.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Those go up. Doug Adams again. Are the Hoyas basically down to a 3-guard rotation? On paper, yeah. They're going to have to get creative if they want to get a 4th guard in there.
Yeah. It is. It's pretty much a 3-guard rotation for them, and unless they get Kobe Eubanks, they are very thin, and the guards are going to be used heavily.
Or again, if they're going to have to, if they really are in a pinch, they're going to need to have Peak play the 2.
Yeah.
And then, then you can at least have 4. But again, guards are depth, and the lack of depth is an issue. Are we an injury away from backcourt disaster? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you that, it could be fine. No, it would be a big problem.
Yeah, so they better just hope that everything goes well and that they stay healthy, because otherwise they are in deep, deep trouble.
All right. Doug Adams for one more, which is nice. Couldn't Georgetown get a lot more free points at the line if players had more freedom to drive, get inside, and create contact? Sure.
Certainly. But, the offense that they run just become their staple, the Princeton offense.
But at the same time, also, especially this season, if you're letting your guards run inside and create contact, your guards are being put to the floor, and then you have an injury.
Exactly. So it could be
also, no one in college basketball can hit free throws, so I wouldn't want to rely on free throws. So
that's certainly true.
But to answer the question, yes, on paper, it would be a good idea. But I don't know if Georgetown's offense has had many problems over the last few years. I mean, No,
they've been a very stout offensive club.
Yeah, so, We got Zach Pippa. Can DSR be an under-the-radar player with a chance to be an All-American? Absolutely. I definitely think that. And, do I want to say this? I'm gonna. I actually think DSR might have a better shot at being an All-American at the end of the year than Chris Dunn, just because I don't know that Chris Dunn's team is going to be, over 500 or whatever this year. I know. I don't feel great about saying it. Chris Dunn's a much better player than DSR. Much better.
See, my problem isn't so much the record of the teams around him. It's just the fact that college basketball is filled with talented guards all over the place, that it's going to be really, really, really tough for him to stand out. Because for him to be an All-American better than or comparable to Chris Dunn, to Marcus Page, to Melo Trimble, to Monte Morris, to Ron Baker, to Fred Van Vliet, to Nigel Hayes, to Buddy Hield of Oklahoma. And those are just all off the top of my head, and there's probably a bunch more that I'm totally forgetting right now from other conferences around the country. And I don't know if I can say for sure that that's going to happen, because all those guards and all those guys, they're going to get all sorts of national attention from the jump, and people are going to have preconceived notions about them. And unless DSR, takes this gigantic leap where he suddenly becomes the best guard in the Big East Conference, it's going to be it's going to be tough sledding for him. I think there's obviously a chance, of course, to be under the radar, but problem is the radar is congested very, very, very highly.
But let's say DSR does somehow put up similar type numbers to Chris Dunn. I'm not saying, the exact same, but stays within a couple points of him in certain areas. I mean, are you going to pick the kids from Georgetown or are you going to pick the kids from Providence?
Yeah. Preconceived notions, bias, and whatnot.
They don't happen a whole ton in college basketball compared to other sports, so it's nice. But, I'm just saying.
No, I get what you're saying.
Going to have a lot more national exposure this year.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think Chris Dunn still will end up being the All-American over DSR because he's just that good. But it's not as crazy.
And also the likes of Frank Mason from Kansas, Malcolm Brogdon from Virginia, and I'm just looking at just teams here right now. James Yogi Ferrell from Indiana, and Allen even from Duke if he decides to show out. Tyler Ulis at Kentucky. I mean, Karis LeVert from Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just Denzel Valentine from Michigan State, I believe or whichever one. I think it's either Valentine or Dawson. I can't. I think it's Brandon Dawson, isn't it? That's back for Sparty this year, right?
Yeah.
Or is it's not Valentine.
No, Valentine's back too.
Oh no! It is Valentine who I'm thinking of. Never mind. Dawson and Travis Trice both graduated last year. That's right. I knew it was one of them. So again, like I said, it's the field is it's so crowded and it's so tough to get past that if you're not even on the radar right now. He might be pretty damn good, but
yeah, okay.
You have to get past first all of them, and two, you have to get past the preconceived notions that a lot of writers and a lot of the media are going to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that that's fair. It's just a simple fact that the field is just so loaded.
Getting back to DSR real quick, though, how did Indiana let him leave?
I do not have a
How
clue.
is he not in the Big Ten somewhere?
I do not have a clue at all whatsoever.
That's crazy. I mean,
we let a kid from Indianapolis go all the way to Georgetown.
Indiana didn't even offer him, it doesn't look like.
Wow.
And he was good. He was still good back then. The only
Big Ten team that offered him was Michigan State.
Wow, that's very surprising. I mean, certainly when DSR first got into campus, the Big East was still, what it was. And he went to Oak Hill and whatnot, so.
Yeah.
He had looks like did he have an offer from Purdue?
No, not from what I'm seeing. I mean.
No, on 27 Sports, it has him having an offer from Indiana and Purdue.
Sure. I mean, I usually use verbal commits, but yeah,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
offers aren't perfect. They're very hard to keep track of.
Yeah. No, I have no idea how DSR got away from Indiana. Crazy.
We got a little bit more breaking news coming down the pipe here. Stanford announces that sophomore guard Robert Cartwright will miss the season with a broken right arm suffered in practice November 2nd. He was going to be their starting point guard this year, and they're already missing Marcus Allen for a chunk of the season, and they play Villanova later this month and DePaul next month, so not a great time for the Cardinal.
Jeez, no. Johnny Dawkins.
Ray Dawkins, who lost his 3 best players from last year already, also, before these injuries.
Oh, boy, it's going to be a tough year in Palo Alto.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, back to Georgetown. Since we're still going, I guess. We're out of questions.
We're out of questions. I think we're about wrapped up. We pretty much touched on everything here. I mean, we were really in-depth with this hangout today. We went an hour and a half.
That's going to happen when you have good teams.
Yeah.
Also, this is a good warm-up for the full season preview.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Couple last things. Georgetown's marketing people, fantastic.
Oh, Chris Gross.
They somehow topped the shirt last year with Jack and the Wolf Pack with the Skater Jack bobblehead this year.
Which has been making the rounds. I saw it on PTI. It was on Mike and Mike.
Yeah. It's doing the car wash, you know. And they also did Dumb and Dumber Night for soccer. So, yeah, no, their marketing people are fantastic. Jack is great. You know, we're big fans of live mascots in this hangout.
Mostly dogs.
Yes. Most of the Butler hangout will just be us talking about the time we spent with Blue.
Which was awesome.
It was fantastic. Yeah, actually, good segue there. Butler hangout, Friday night.
Yes.
I know, it's inconvenient timing. Clear your plans. Watch us before you go out.
Yep, and if you can't, watch us on the weekend.
Yeah, you know, you don't have to watch these live.
No, not at all. And if you're going to DC, I recommend Ben's Chili Bowl. Get yourself a half smoke.
That's a cop-out. Everyone knows about Ben's Chili Bowl.
No, I'm just saying. Quite good.
We were going to go to DC.
We were.
In, like, May, go to, like, Nationals-Yankees, and there were no hotels for, like, under $150. So that got scrapped.
It was crazy.
So, yeah, go to Ben's Chili Bowl. Go to Shake Shack. You never been to Shake Shack?
There's probably a ton of great restaurants
that
we're not talking about. You can go to Eater DC to find them out. Always good to plug the brand.
I also Matt Brown, Luke Zimmerman can probably guide you.
Oh yeah, they can. They know a lot more about DC than us. So. They're residents.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, no, that about wraps it up here. Thank you for putting up with this for an hour and a half.
Do the remaining schedule real quick.
Yeah.
Butler, Friday night, time to be determined. Mike Murtaugh joining us. Villanova, Monday afternoon. At some point, probably just us two again. Wednesday, full season preview.
Yep.
All of college basketball, probably going to end up being at night. Probably going to get Pierce in here. Probably going to get Mike in here. Going to be a long thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think last year we went 2 hours. So
yeah, we went 2 hours last year too.
So that'll be fun, and then you'll be ready to go.
Yep.
So that'll do it. Done.
Yep. Take care, y'all. Thanks for putting up with us for over an hour and a half. Content will continue to be coming your way on the site, so stay tuned. We know you may have liked our Big East Coast Bias rankings today of centers. Finished off all the positions. You can check them out. We'll probably make a story stream out of them just in case you missed any of them. So just bear with us. We're in the home stretch here, so take care, y'all.